Do we need our sheet too?
Yeah.
I have 2 copies.
No, I mean,
No,
you're
unless
gonna
you took
read it.
notes on
all-
it.
We did read over it, rehearsed it, so to speak.
Yeah. Are there any that you want me to get rid of or
No.
add or? I mean, it's
No, fire away.
okay. Okay.
I mean, I got my shoes on.
Maybe it's because of your choice of socks.
No, I like my socks.
Pretty loud.
Yeah. The girls like them there at JCC when they where I got them.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
Okay. Okay, Barbara Ann Landis Little.
Bradley Jerome Little. I was named after my aunt, wanted to give me a name when I was born. And there was a prominent general in World War II whose name was General Omar Bradley. So I was named after him.
York Hospital,
York Hospital.
September the 11th, 1941.
September 1st, 1940.
'76.
77.
We lived in Loganville, Lock Street, and my dad and my grandfather built our house.
I lived in a suburb of Spring Grove. Spring Grove not being very big, it was halfway between Spring Grove and Jefferson, which is also known as Cadorus. All right, and it was a group of houses, and somehow or other, Wyota, W-I-O-T-A. I can't explain it, but that's just what it was called. Maybe 10 houses.
That was with your grandparents.
What?
That was with your grandparents.
Well, it was with my grandparents. There was three families lived in one house. My mom and dad and I, and my 2 grandparents, and my aunt and uncle, and then another cousin of mine and her parents. The house was big enough with bedrooms, and my mom and dad and I had a little addition, what was a smokehouse to the house. It was just a kitchen, and then we had bathroom facilities and bedrooms upstairs. So there was a lot of people in one dwelling for 3-4 years.
I think ours was RD8. Just RD8 York.
I was RD2 Spring Grove.
RD8.
Rural delivery number 2 from the Spring Grove post office. There were no numbers on a rural route like that.
I went to 12th grade. I started out in Loganville, and then I went to Doylestown 1 year, back up to Loganville, and then I went into Phineas Davis in York, and then I graduated from William Penn High School in York.
I started out in Spring Grove. When I was old enough to go to school, I would have gone to a little one-room country school, but my parents had plans to eventually build a house in Spring Grove and move there, so they started me out in Spring Grove. They paid to send me to Spring Grove schools, and I traveled with my dad, worked at the paper mill in Spring Grove, and he went to work in the morning. I went along with him. When he came home in the afternoon, I came home with him, and stayed at my grandma's house before school and after school. And that was my first 3 years. And then they built a house in Spring Grove, and I lived in Spring Grove and walked to school for the rest of my school career. Graduated from Spring Grove High School in 1958.
59. I went to school. I don't think I always liked school, but I tried to do the best I can, and I got good grades to pass, and I guess that's all I could have done better, and that would be some advice I'd give my grandchildren. While you're in school, do the best you can.
I liked school. I liked camaraderie with other school students. I knew that I knew, and our playground was a highlight of my school. Outside, course, in the winter time, we played games in a gymnasium, where I went my first 3 years of school were in an auditorium. The school wasn't very big, so we had a classroom on the stage of the auditorium, and that's where I started out school. And I did like some classes, and some I didn't. I think, again, I think I could have done better if I'd have really applied myself, but I could have done better.
I think I always liked English. I know my daughters probably would laugh at that because I tried to give them their spelling words, and that didn't always go the best, but we had fun doing it. But I liked English.
I like math. Later years in school, then you had to pick, you were in a general course or academic course or a business course. I just went for academic. I did fair. I didn't like languages. I didn't like Latin. I didn't like French, but I took them and got a passing mark because I knew I had to have a passing mark to get through high school. To get to high school and then through high school. It was required. I did like school. And one thing I liked particularly was recess. Your dad would relate to that. And I liked it because we played horsey. I weighed about 96, 97 pounds when I was in 8th and 9th grade. And we had a fellow in my class who was about 6'3" and about 200 pounds. I rode him, and we took everybody else down. You just went up against somebody, usually grabbed them by the neck and pulled them till they went down. The last man standing, riding his back, holding around his neck. His name was Ivan. They called him Ivan the Terrible. One of the highlights of my school career.
In general, it was just English, history, spelling, geography. I don't think we really had gym because in the 1st through 6th grade, we had the same teacher. So she was our gym teacher, our music teacher, and our art teacher.
I would have had enough marks to go, and my parents wanted me to go to an aviation school, that was in Florida, where you went there, or you could take it. In those days, it wasn't online, so it was a mail. Your studies were by mail, you testing, and then back and forth that way like that. And it was for different positions in the airport industry, in the airplane industry. And as in an airport ticket, or baggage, or whatever, that type. And I didn't do very well because I didn't like it, and I never finished it. I played percussion in the Spring Road Band. There were local bands in the area. I played summer picnics with different bands. Jefferson, Glen Rock. Every Saturday night was a different picnic somewhere.
Well, I thought it would be nice to be I'd say kindergarten teacher, but they didn't have kindergarten then, a 1st grade teacher. But I was happy to be a mother and to be a grandmother.
I wanted to be a cowboy. In those days, a friend of mine lived up the street, a fellow classmate, and we always played cowboys. And we shot each other with a gun, with a cap gun. You pulled the trigger, bang, 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 bang. And it was nothing even thought of it. It was just a game we played. Hide behind, well, that type of thing. So I just took it on to that. This is fun. I want to be a cowboy.
When I went to school, in my senior year, I worked at the store. I guess we could call a 5 and dime similar to the dollar store today. And then I worked, when I graduated, then I worked for a while at Murphy's. When I got to high school, there was a group that we could go into. It was called DE, Distributive Ed, where you went to school in the morning and you worked in the afternoon. And I worked downtown York on the square at G.C. Murphy. I worked on the floor for a little while, and then I was in the office for a little while. And that I enjoyed. And then I worked over at our church at preschool and helped with the 3 and 4-year-olds. I was there probably about 7 years until I got sick. That I really enjoyed. That was a lot of fun. It was just half days.
I had a part-time job delivering newspapers morning and evening in the big metropolis of Spring Grove. The morning paper was the York Gazette and Daily, and the evening paper was the York Dispatch and the Hanover Evening Sun. And then the executives at the Gladfelder paper mill would get the Wall Street Journal and those type of papers. And at one point I delivered the whole town of Spring Grove in the morning before I went to school, and divided up the evening papers between myself and another fellow for the after school. Did that 6 days a week. There was no Sunday paper delivery in town, but my employer had an old station wagon. I would sit in the back with the windows open, and he drove to mailboxes all over the rural area of Spring Grove, and we put newspapers in the mailboxes. I rode with him. It was a good job, paid very well, and I liked what I was doing. In the winter it was a little rough, you know, but I had cleats that fastened to my shoes that I could walk on ice. And in the town of Spring Grove, in the back streets, they had porches and banisters. So in between the banisters, you'd walk along and just put the papers in there. Good job. It wasn't hard work. I liked what I did. I got good tips at Christmas. And got a take of the price of the paper delivery. I got a portion of that. So the more papers I had, the more money I made. Before we were married, I worked for C.S. Davidson, was a civil engineer, surveyor, surveyors, and my uncle worked there. I worked with him sometimes, but he was mostly in the office, so I was in a field crew. And all around York County, staked out for homes and Haynes Acres, the whole development out there. We did the streets and the sewers and everything there. Manchester, Mount Wolf. It was a very interesting job. It was outside work. Of course, in the wintertime, it wasn't fit to work outside, so they put me at a desk drawing lines for a blueprint type thing. I didn't like that at all. I applied for a job at the paper mill in Spring Grove, B.H. Gladfelders. I got a job there and stayed there almost 40 years. It was a good paying job. I supported my family. It was what I made. Always had employment, always had a job.
No, you worked
Well,
shift
I
work.
worked, out of 40 years, I worked about 10 years of shift work. And then I worked salary for the remainder of my time there. Salary jobs were, you had to serve your time, so plain English. So as people then retired or whatever like that, as jobs opened up above, there were salary positions open. And my last years were salary positions. I worked in the stock prep feeder room area of the paper mill, just for information, where we prepared the stock that went to the paper machine and became a sheet of paper, writing paper, book paper, whatever, that type of thing. My last position there, I was foreman for a while, and when I retired, I was assistant paper division superintendent.
I can't remember, but I know I was so excited when I got enough money to buy a coat.
My newspaper job I can remember because one year I tallied it up. I kept records for a whole year. I made almost $400 in wages and in tips and Christmas gifts for a big thing. If you did a good job, it was nothing in those days for somebody to get Christmas to give you $10, which would be unbelievable nowadays how much, but it was then. And then when I went to C.S. Davidson, my pay was $42.42 for probably 3 years. $42.42 was my take-home pay.
Every week.
Every week, and we survived on that. The two of us, and then there was 2 children. Later on, when I went to the paper mill, then things changed significantly, but I worked 7 days a week, $8 a day.
And our rent was $40.
Our rent, including utilities, was $40 a month.
I always drove my dad's car until we met, and I'll leave you he'll tell you about his favorite cars.
My first car was a 1950 black Ford, which I modified, and wheels and etc. And in those days, the trend was to lower a car. So you put weight in the back, or you change the suspension so that the back wheels just barely showed underneath what they called fender skirts, and the back end was lowered. Actually, she said if somebody sat in the back, they couldn't see out, they were down there. Solid black. I always had it shined up nice. It was called Zorro. Zorro. There was a movie person called Zorro in those days. And then I progressed to a 1955 Ford when I got more money. That was a 2-door Victoria hardtop, powder blue with a white top. And she learned to drive that. And then later on we got some gear shifts, and I told her how to drive a gear shift she had never driven before. It reached a point at one time where I wrote down on a piece of paper when she went from our place down to Loganville when to shift gears.
When I went up Grantley Hill, I knew it to first drive on the left. I had to shift gear. Like when he would work 3 to 11, and we'd go to church and eat, and then I'd go down home. Scott would be Barry was in the back in like a playpen, and Scott would be in the front in a car seat.
We had a car seat that clamped on the seat back with a little steering wheel and a horn in the middle. And in the back seat, we had a baby buggy that was also a bassinet. The baby was in there, but you could take it off of the wheels and put it in the car, and he stayed in there.
And we just put him in the car without any car seat.
And no seat belts at all, not at all. No, the first car that had seat belts was about 1970. So for all those years, the children, we had a station wagon, the kids were just in what we call the way back. They were just back there, sitting wherever they wanted to, laid down, whatever. They weren't fastened into seated whatsoever. In fact, it wasn't a seat, it was just a platform.
My dad's name was Robert John Landis, but we called him Bob, Dad. And my stepmother was Ruth Alberta Myers Landis. And my mother died. I was born September the 11th in 41, and my mother passed away September the 13th, 1941. But Ruth was just like a mother. I mean, I didn't know any different, and she took care of me and disciplined me just like she was my own mother, but she was a very good person. So was my dad, and I guess the thing I remember about them, they just were hard workers. They just worked. I mean, they would go to the mountains, but they had to get the work done first. We had to get those peas picked or whatever it was. Then you go. Their theory was you do your work, then you play.
My father was Clarence Walter Little. My mother was Mildred Leona Stern. My dad was in the military till 1946 when he come home from the Army. He served all his time in Japan, and he come home. He got a job at the paper mill, and he worked there. And then he, in order for us to build a house and maintain a family, he also had a part-time job. He was a painter around Spring Grove. Spring Grove had a lot of older homes with a wooden shingle roof, and he had to stain it. So he would get a ladder and go up on the roof. And when I got old enough, I would fill the bucket down on the ground, but tied it with a rope and hoisted it up to him. And he stained probably a third or a quarter of the houses in Spring Grove roof with wooden shingles. He did that as a part. He worked a 3 to 11 shift at the mill, so all day long he painted roofs and then went to work at the paper mill. And my mother worked at a hosiery where they made stockings. They manufactured stockings, sewed stereo stockings, and they dampened those. They were wet, moisture, and then she stripped them down over a hot steam-fired form that was shaped like a foot, like a stocking. You stripped it down over that dried it, and you took it off, you put it in a box. And they were basically work stockings. They were blues, browns, a work type stocking with a white heel and a white toe, with the colored stocking. She worked there for quite a while till she had some medical issues, and it was very hot work. But it was all basically women did it, and they were paid piecework. You got paid by the number of stockings you packaged. He was in what they call support, for simply, it had a probably technical name like that, but basically you supported the troops on the front line. So he was in like Jeeps, that type of thing, mechanics, and supplies, getting supplies from where they originated, come into Japan from the United States by air or by ship, and then they unloaded them and sent them to the battlefront. He was never what you would call in combat.
Ronald Lamar Landis was my brother, half-brother, and Karen Elaine Landis Kohler is my half-sister. They were always good to me and we always got along. I guess I shouldn't say always, but most of the time we got along, and like I say, they were good. And they both were hard workers. Karen worked in a dental office for 30 plus years, and Ronald worked in offices around York. He was good at his job. He liked that.
I had no siblings. I thought I did. Sort of a funny story, when I went to first grade, the teacher asked if we had any sisters or brothers, and I said, yes, I have a sister, Cindy. She was my cousin. We just happened to be living in the same house, and I thought she was my sister. We played together, grew up together, so I didn't know any difference. Until the teacher straightened me out. She said, according to your paperwork, when you enrolled in school, you didn't have a sister. So I took a little explanation. I went home from school that day and I asked, what's going on here? Unfortunately, she died an unfortunate thing. She died in an airplane crash on Christmas Eve, 1967, out Bradford, Pennsylvania. Her and her husband were flying home for Christmas. The airplane took off in Bradford and crashed into the side of a mountain, and she was killed, or was killed.
Mm-hmm.
And unbelievably, there were some survivors of that crash. That was the only. I do have two other cousins, yes, that are still living, but no siblings.
My grandparents on the Landis side, my grandpa worked at a feed mill in York called Eshelman's, and he farmed. He was a small farmer. And Grandpa and Grandma Myers, I don't remember exactly too much about them. We would go and visit them, but I don't remember a lot about them.
I grew up in my grandparents' house. The house where they lived out in Wyoto, but like I said, there was 3 families there. And my grandfather did work in a factory in New York, but he also had, in those days they called it a truck patch, which is really a small garden with rows. Some people's were pretty good size. He farmed it, he plowed it with mules that he borrowed from a neighbor. He didn't own a tractor. He just took the mules. And ironically, I remember the name of it was Sam and Jake. And Sam liked to pull the plow, and Jake did not like to pull the plow. That's the way mules were. Mules were what they called cantankerous, ornery. If they didn't want to do something, they just stood their ground. So you had to have a touch if I was at farm with mules. You didn't want to push them or beat them. That was just the wrong thing to do. You had to get to know them and they to know you. And he got the job done with those. And then in later years, he did work in New York at a factory that made some of the first window air conditioning units in the country. They were called York Air Conditioning. And my grandma was just a homemaker. I hate to say just, because she was a very good cook, and I grew up in those days learning, grew up with her cooking, and then aunt and uncles, because my mother, then when my dad worked at Gladfellows, my mother went to work at the Naval Ordnance Plant in New York, who made munitions for the Army and Navy, as in bombs. They had a history of being made in New York. Now that would be on the site where Harley-Davidson is now. And she also talks about a tunnel, which I think is still there. I find it interesting. There's a tunnel about a quarter of a mile long, back in under a hill, which her house is a place above it now where they tested bombs. Shot them back in there to test them. And she also worked at a place that made safes. It's called York Safe and Lock. Made floor model safes big safes for businesses. We were little home safes like that.
Probably dust the bedrooms upstairs, and Karen and I took turns with the dishes. Karen would help more with the cooking and things. Karen's a very good cook. And I always tried, but so I like to help clean up. I can always do that.
I did dishes, I'm proud to say that. We didn't have a dishwasher when I grew up. So I did the dishes because my mother worked. And I would sometimes take her a lunch down. She would prepare it, but I would take it to her. I walked, it wasn't that far from where we lived to where she worked. Did that. And then of course when I got old enough and I was responsible enough, we had a walk behind lawnmower, so I mowed the lawn in those days. That was the extent of my chores.
We did for a little while. We had a dog, Brownie. And I think maybe we had cats every now and then. I know one time we had a cat that she had kittens in Dad's dresser drawer. Just jumped in there and just that's where she had her kittens. So that was so much fun.
I had a dog. Of course, one of my favorite cowboy was Hopalong Cassidy. And Hopalong Cassidy's horse's name was Tony. So my collie dog's name was Tony. He was the weirdest dog. My dad and I built him a box. He did, and it had a very sharp peaked roof on it, like that. And he would lay across the peak, his belly. Head down one side and feet down the other. On the roof, he liked to be up there and look around. Yeah. He was chained fast all the time. He didn't do good. Wasn't the type of dog you could take for a walk or let run loose. He had to be chained fast.
No, I didn't. When we wanted to do something, which we very seldom would go and do, other than what we would do with our family, but no, I didn't. But if we needed something, well, we got money.
I never got it out. My paper job was paid well, and didn't spend any money. In those days, you didn't have much reason to spend any money.
I was baptized. They told me in the Kraut home in Loganville is close to where Carmen's is in Loganville. It was where my grandmother Mabel Kraut lived, and she lived to be 100. And I was baptized October the 5th, 1941, like we do in the Lutheran Church now.
Like anointed. I was baptized at Mount Zion UCC, and in those days it was called the Reformed Church, which later became the UCC. And I was baptized November the 24th, 1940, and confirmed April the 11th, 1954.
Well, we usually went to one of the houses, Thanksgiving. I think we first started out with each family had their own Thanksgiving tradition, but then over the years, the families got big, and then we'd go maybe to Aunt Mildred's, or I can't think where else we went. But as far as like Christmas, well, we had, backing up there, we had reunions in the summer, the Myers reunion in the summer. And then we would pick names, because it was probably 100 people. And then they'd put each child or adult in a certain group, and you'd pick names. And then you would buy that person a gift and give it to them at Christmas. And at Christmas, we usually had our family Christmas party down at Seven Valleys to Fire Hall. That different, like Mother or Mildred or Dot, one of them we'd probably have about 3 turkeys. And each person made a turkey, and everybody else brought stuff. So that was always a fun time.
Our family was much smaller, but they had a big house out there. My uncle always put a train up and a tree. And my aunt, my parents bought gifts, of course, not a lot. And my aunt always bought me a reindeer sweater. So over the years, I must have had 10 reindeer sweaters. I mean, I didn't wear it out, but every year when I opened the package up, oh, a sweater. My Aunt Anna, she had no children. So, and I had 3 cousins, and well, we all got toys, and the girls got other dolls and stuff for a little tea set and chairs and tables and
Yeah,
stuff.
he was the only boy.
Yeah, well, sure, I wore it for a while, but I didn't really like it. I was sort of tired of reindeer sweaters. You ever see it? You know what I'm talking about? It's a sweater that's sewed into the fabric is a reindeer, the outline of a reindeer in different colors. She did alternate colors. So one year the deer was brown, and another year the deer was. It was a funny thing because my mom always told me, now when you open that, you make a big deal out of it because your aunt will be upset if you don't. So I would unwrap it. Oh, a reindeer sweater.
I like Valentine's Day because I think it's a day that you can show love to your friends or your family. I know we should really show love around all year round, but sometimes people just remember that day. And I liked about Valentine's.
I like Halloween. Halloween because you can do stuff that you can't get away with the rest of the year. Well, we always had Halloween in little old Spring Grove. We always had a big Halloween parade. That was a big event. People come from all around for a Halloween parade, and I marched in the Halloween parade in the Spring Grove band, high school band.
I know some of us in the family, Ron and Karen, and I don't know, we dress up and go in the Halloween parade in Spring Grove. It was kind of a big deal because we could be silly, not do anything, but just be silly.
Yeah.
I like purple. Anything purple. Or orchid, lighter shade.
Lavender, lilac, green. Any shades of green.
I like lemon sponge pie.
Fruit, I like fresh fruit, yes, but I also like Boston cream pie. Or, second choice, Montgomery pie. It's similar to lemon meringue, or a pineapple upside down cake. My Aunt Mary used to make them, and I like them.
Turkey and all the trimmings.
Hamburg, soup and hamburger. I think I could survive on soup for a
Yeah,
while.
he could.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell him Bill Elliott.
Well, Bill Elliott, but he wasn't, in my eyes he was famous, but
Oh,
and
that's
some
true.
people never heard of him or could care less. He was that type of person. Willard Scott. He was just a TV person, you know, so there again, some people wouldn't have called him famous. In his own way, he was famous, yeah.
Like a president.
Yeah. We're in our era, 50s, 60s, there was Truman, Eisenhower, candidates later on.
Yeah. Yeah, because we saw over and over again, we'd hear about Kennedy and the
Kennedy's
shooting and,
assassination.
yeah. Everybody was very quiet everywhere you went. Yeah, when that happened, you just couldn't believe something like that would happen.
Kennedy was in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So in the 60s I was working. And in the mail they announced that the president has been shot. But for a while, with the media, what it is, it took a while for it to get around, you know, and find they hesitated to say he was shot and killed.
In
They
fact,
just said I'd say it might even go on maybe 2 days or more before it was finally released that he was killed. In other words, he was shot and he was in a hospital, and then they found the person, and the rest is history.
one time we went up to the Baseball Hall of Fame to see Brooks Robinson come in, and I thought he was, you know, really, he was very, very popular, just like Cal Ripken, but I just enjoyed most any kind of sport, but I don't have any favorite.
I don't. Some people don't call it an athlete, but a NASCAR driver, when you're driving for about 3 hours, something that goes 200 miles an hour and trying to stay away from trouble, to me that is an athlete. You got to be in good shape to do that. So that was Bill Elliott. He's retired now, and his son is racing, but he was my man for years. He was one of the first person to go over 200 miles an hour in NASCAR. I sure did. He was in my era. Mickey Mantle, all the Yankees. Yeah. Joe DiMaggio. Yeah, and all those guys. Carey, McDougal, Mantle. I can name all the Yankees for you, but it's against my will to do that. Hey, say, Willie Mays, yes. Don't recall. Probably did, because it would have been in the years for me, my years were the late 50s and early 60s. Those are the years I really followed baseball close. And traded cards. I would suspect you didn't get in trouble very much.
Why do you say that?
Well, you were well behaved. You didn't get in trouble.
Well, thank you.
I was trouble. If you ever got in any trouble, it was probably had my name on it. Shake your head, yes.
I think I got in trouble more if I didn't do my chores. Well, Jerry,
No.
tell one thing.
One thing. Well, I said I drove to school when I shouldn't have. But luck be with me, it snowed that day, so I had to drive home. And I slid to a stop sign and hit a school bus.
Yeah.
I was allowed to drive to school 1 day a week. All right? So this particular time I picked Friday. And I drove to school. And it snowed. And when we come out from school, the roads were very bad. And I should have left it sit at school because I didn't live that far from the school. I could have walked home and got the car later. I decided to drive home. Roads were slippery. Went to a stop sign, met a school bus. And then the school bus wound up going through a fence. And the farmers that had the fence was very much upset. So he had stayed. This happened all the time. He was well known around Spring Grove for anything. He'd come out with a long metal rod and hammered it down in the ground and chained the car fast to that rod till he got his money for damages. In that case, he changed the school bus too. And he had a lot of property that was perfectly level. There's that tabletop, and it was about a mile away from the airport back at Thomasville. And a lot of times planes ran out of gas for whatever reason, so they landed in his field. Did the same thing. Iron stake, chained fast till he got money for his crop damages.
I think it's so many things, right? What can I list out?
We're in a technology age. Whether you like it or not. Some people resist it, some people accept it. But it's here, so you have to live with it.
And it's just so fast paced, and everybody wants to go fast. I mean, get in the car and go fast. What else?
Everybody has schedules. They have places they have to be. But out on the highways, I get frustrated sometimes. Everybody's in such a hurry to get somewhere, and when you get to the next intersection, they're sitting right aside of you. But it's just human nature to go fast. I would say those kind of drivers are more than people that are slow drivers, and that's what causes a lot of accidents.
And the schools, I mean, schools have changed
Right.
so much.
I think the schools are part of the fault nowadays. Some students, if students can't quite make it like that, they don't take the time to teach them. They just
Push them along.
get them, keep them going. Get out, graduate, get out of here. Not in those terms exactly, but I think you know what I mean. They don't. The school systems, teachers don't take the time to teach. They just a lot of teachers, are there for the job, for the salary. The old-time teachers were there to teach. They didn't get paid much at all, but it was a vocation, and they had a responsibility to teach their children. I think some of that's lost.
Back in those days, I'm sure if you ask your mom, they'd talk about the wringer washers, and I know when we first got married, I had a wringer washer, and I liked that. Well, you put the wash in the wash machine, and then you'd get it out, and you have to put it through a wringer. And then you put it in rinse water, one article at a time. And then it would go from that rinse water to another rinse water, and then out to the basket to hang it up.
Air dried from the dryer.
Yeah. And you had to be careful how you put it through the wringer, or you could,
And you didn't want to get your fingers in the wringer.
no.
That didn't often happen. People were careful because the opening between the wringer rollers was about like that.
You couldn't see between it.
Yeah. But it literally squeezed probably 90% of the water out of it through the wringer.
Well, it was nothing for some girls or guys to wear clothes that your mother or grandmother made and
Hand-me-downs.
hand-me-down and wore hand-me-downs and I'm sure there's some girls that do that today. I mean I don't mean like like if Rachel and Erica exchange clothes or you get something from somebody else. That's well, we did that, but it's just that they make clothes and that's feed bags or.
You didn't wear jeans that were torn or had holes in.
No.
They were patched. You never went to school with your knees out or skin exposed and your legs torn, ripped. And now what's the style now would not have been worn outside the house.
The young girls wore dresses. I can remember like the first, even I can remember going and getting dresses for Belinda and the Dawn. They didn't want me to know I went to Sears. People knew that I went to Sears and bought them dresses. Because that was just, it just wasn't a place that you go to buy little girls' dresses.
It wasn't upscale. Sears was commonplace. Sears and Robert Halls and places you never heard of even. There was no Walmarts back in the 50s and 60s. You just had some department stores. Some good music? From what years? Oh my gosh, man.
I just heard good music. I play the television a lot with music. And then I can pick out.
Music channel.
Yeah. But I think we liked Elvis Presley or Fabian, Bobby Rydell.
Bobby Vinton.
Bobby Vinton. And there was a show on Channel 43, and it was called Bandstand. And
American Bandstand with Dick Clark. Remember that?
No,
No.
they don't. And they would have dancers on there, and they were, and you watched it and you felt like you knew them. It was couples, and that was always a really good show to young people. And then they had one here in York on Channel 43. They had a bandstand. I don't think they called it that.
Club 43.
Club 43, yeah. We were on that. We were on that one time. And
It was in there on Queen Street, right where Channel 43 is now, right down in the basement. They had it set up for a grand.
but they had a lot of sock hops. That would be a thing at the school or
Danced in your socks, yeah. That's how I got the name, yes.
the Everly Brothers the other day. They were on.
The Beatles.
The Beatles. Well, yeah, they heard the Beatles. But Patsy Cline.
It was country music. Patsy Cline, Willie Nelson.
He's still around.
Some of them are still around. Country music wasn't real big in our area. Around Spring Grove, York, Hanover. But there were some country music stations then that people listened to.
WNOW.
When you bought records, people had accumulated a big pile of records.
Dolly Parton.
There was a movie called Shane. Shane ran away from home and said, he just kept, come back Shane, come back. And then there was Old Yeller, it was about a dog, the Yellow Lab. That was good. To me, all the James Bond movies were good.
We can really go to movies.
Way back it was westerns.
Gene Autry and Roy Rogers.
And Lincoln Drive-In. I still get harassed. I took Belinda to see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Sort of gory. I wanted to see it. She wanted to go along. She didn't. So we went. 14, 15 maybe. Yeah. She still talks about what I did. Like Scott makes a big deal of it. I can't believe you did that. Well, I was going to say, you probably didn't want to go, so. Drive-in movies were interesting. I'd still like to go to one sometime.
The only thing with the drive-in movie, they started so late. You know, they would show maybe 2 or 3 movies, but they'd start so late
That'd be
because
dark.
it was pretty dark. Yeah. Once in a while, we'd take the kids to a movie. We could afford that because it was one price. That's kind of simple.
I'll let you tell this. I talk too much.
No, we met in our cousin's wedding. Deanna and Laverne Wetzel got married at the church in Spring Grove, Mount Zion, and Laverne's my cousin, and Deanna is his cousin. He was an usher, and I was a bridesmaid.
I don't think we did that. Did they have a reception somewhere? I guess they did.
Probably, I think maybe at Jefferson.
Then I called her and asked her for a date. And she said yes. And then I took her to the York Fair. And we had to end that early because she had work to do. She had a babysitting job. Right?
Right.
Back at the Lincoln Drive-In, there was a development there, a house, and that's where we went.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that
was,
was it. That was number 2.
well, I think we went to see
Yes,
Pat Boone,
in April Love.
April Love.
It was a movie back in those days, yes. Did he sing?
Yes.
I thought he was just an actor, but he did sing
No,
too.
he did, yeah. He sang April Love. Well,
The wedding was in 57, so I would have been 17 and she was 16, right? Where we first met.
yeah. Yeah, because were you a senior?
No, I was a senior in 58.
Okay. So he went to Spring Grove and I went to York High, and I worked in at Murphy's, which is no longer on the square in York, but I'd work sometimes nighttime and till 9 o'clock, and then he'd come in and get me, because I didn't drive then. Or sometimes, not at night, during the day after work, I'd walk down to the train station in York and get the bus. You got buses down there, and that's how I would go home, or mother or dad or one of them came and got me. But I liked it in there. I worked down on the floor or worked in the office, and it was fun.
We had a date, we went to visit my cousin, right?
Mm-hmm. Below Mill and Clarence's.
Yeah,
They lived in an apartment.
yeah.
And we were just there in the car, and he said, "Will you marry me?" I had a ring, and that was that. 1920.
hmm I was 20. In March of 1960, no, I was 19. She married in March of 1960, but I wasn't 20 till September of 1960.
Okay.
So it was actually 19. And yours was in September also.
Yeah. He worked in York, and I worked in York also, and sometimes he'd go by and we'd wave to each other.
And we'd meet down at the market, had a place called, whose cafeteria?
Les's.
Les's Cafeteria. And where I worked wasn't far from there, nor her. It was close, walking distance. And the market's still there.
Mm-hmm. His dad, Clarence, was
My best man.
best man, and Ronald was an usher. Our friend Lois Snyder was the organist, and Cindy, his cousin, was bridesmaid, and Arlene.
Cindy and Arlene, yeah.
I bought my gown in a Weiss department store in York, and Pauline, which is Laverne Wetzel's mother, she fixed gloves for me. We borrowed some of the gowns that the girls had, we borrowed, and the guys just wore plain suits, and then from there we went down to Seven Valleys to the fire hall, and that's where we had our reception. And then we left there and went in to Blattner in York and got pictures taken. And then we, that night we went up to Harrisburg for our honeymoon. And the next day we went shopping at a store, and I think we bought a record, and then we came home. That was it. That's all we could afford.
There's a Holiday Inn, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
It's not a hotel anymore.
Yeah.
No, I don't. It was probably something with Elvis Presley, I would think.
The record.
Yeah, a 45.
Yeah. There was a store there called E.J. Corvette. Corvette. Not like the automobile.
We had a cake.
Who made the cake?
I don't know. Maybe Knobs. That was a big place around at the market. But no, we just had family and friends, and I think about after you guys got married, I thought of a tradition I think we and other young couples had. You would open your gifts, maybe even there. No, I doubt, no. We probably opened them. We lived with my mother and dad for a while. And you would open your gifts and then you would display them. And people would come to see them. Kind of like a shower. It was like, I know we had them in the dining room and on tables, and then people would come and, oh, we got this from Shane and Rachel. And it just, when I think back about it now, I don't think it was a very nice thing to do. It was, but it wasn't. But that was just a tradition.
When we were married, I weighed around 100 pounds.
His waist was probably
26.
like 26, 27. And if you'd find a pair of pants, 27, 28, you'd get them. And if there were two of them, you'd get them both because it was so hard to get them.
I grew up with that. We lived in Spring Road when that was in walking distance to the church, and I always went to church, and I enjoyed going to church for the camaraderie of other kids from school, that type of thing, and I learned something. I found the things that we studied about and read about that happened in the Bible. I found it interesting, intriguing. I didn't read and study it really like word for word, but just incidents, activities, things that happened that you could question. How could it happen?
In Sunday school.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Of course, we went to Sunday school, and I was always proud that Scott and Barry, as little as they were, and there again, Karen came over and helped me get them ready for church. The first 2 years they went to Sunday school, they got pins for perfect attendance. I have them somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, church was very important, and some of the things that I've done that I feel were wrong and that then you have to pay. And God does forgive you, I know that. But church is definitely, I mean, we had to go to church if we were out late the night before.
Organized chaos? That's an exaggeration. No, everybody got along well.
Yeah.
Our kids, I don't remember. They were minor things, but they weren't, they didn't fight.
No, but our house was chaos because we had a kitchen, and off the kitchen was a little bathroom, and then we had a big living room, and we had one bedroom. And I know when Karen, on Saturday nights, Mother and Dad used to bring Karen over to our house, and then she would help me get the kids ready to go to church. And she'd say our bed, I forget what, she had a name for our bedroom because we had bunk beds in there, and our bed, and a crib.
Together.
It was just furniture the whole way around. And then, of course, when the kids would play, it would be in the living room because that's the only place they had to play. And when someone would come, when like the insurance man would come and he knew just to step over things. I just couldn't put them away. But they found things, and even tricycles in our kitchen. We had a dryer. I mean, it was a dryer, and it was a table and a cabinet to put baby clothes in. But we existed. We didn't exist. We lived. We were happy.
You adjusted, yeah. There was no issues, really. No problems.
Yeah, it was okay. Well, 4 kids in the same family, they're all different. I know I talk to people about that now. I mean, one is, Scott was always good with reading, and he'd play games.
And managing.
And managing. We used to say Barry was the ball player. So Barry's going to be the ball player, and Scott's going to manage him. And Belinda, she was a good reader. She was nothing for her to sit in the closet, and because we had a stack of books in there, and read. And LaDawn, she wasn't much for talking on the phone. That was because we'd say maybe LaDawn, Belinda will be the nurse, and LaDawn could be the secretary. But LaDawn was good at just being the secretary. And we're proud of all 4 of them because they all are hard workers, and they all have good jobs. But you've got to work. You gotta.
And they all like their job.
And they all like their job.
If you don't like your job, it don't go so good.
Oh, we used to play ball out back. Just play ball, and
Oh, yeah.
we had a swing set. Barry had a
All right. Skateboard.
skateboard ramp for a long time. They were in Scouts for a while. They sang on the church choir for a while.
We lived at the ideal place. There was roads there. We had a long driveway and stuff. We always had wagons, tricycles,
Big wheels.
big wheels. Big wheels were quite popular. And they went fast. They went fast, and if you've ever ridden one like that, and then you just pull on the brake and lock it up and spin it around. And they had a thing called a scat car that we bought at Western Auto in Spring Grove. That was a chain drive thing. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we got into the Jeeps, the Barbie Jeeps, and the male, the boy Jeep and the girl Jeep.
How long did we live in Nashville?
4 years. Moved there in 1960, and our house was built. We moved in 64. 4 years.
And we put Belinda. Yeah, we put Belinda in
For what?
when we would
Oh,
work at the house or
yeah.
work at the cemetery. We just put.
We took a playpen and put her under a pine tree. She played in there while the rest of us mowed and trimmed grass. As soon as the boys got old enough to handle a mower.
Then they helped. I never would say, "Oh, I hope those kids go back to school." Like some mothers will say that at the end of the summer.
They can't wait for September.
Yeah,
Get them out of my hair.
because I always enjoyed it because I played with them, or read to them, or had birthday parties. Just very ice cream and
With our friends.
with their friends.
Yeah,
Yeah, and being a grandparent, I mean, that's amazing.
Watching them grow. They grow fast. And I sort of look at it like as my grandchildren get older, I'm getting older. So it makes me stop and think sometimes, you know. Not like they're growing right past me. No, as they get older, I get older. And getting old is not always a fun thing. It's an interesting experience sometimes. These things to deal with, right?
Yeah, and I think that I've heard people say, and you'll help me with this, people say if I would have known that having grandchildren was so much fun, I would have had them first. But it's just, I mean, to think that we can watch you grow and do what you do and learn what it's like to be a good wife or a good husband, or having an apartment or house. It's just a good feeling, and like we say so many times, if we can help out now in doing things or giving you some money to help out, that's what we want to do while we're both here, to see that you see what you use, what we give you. My dream would be that they be healthy. After all what I've been through, I just wish that they would take care of themselves and just be healthy and enjoy life. Don't work all the time, but just enjoy life. And I think the young people today will do that.
My dream, my achievement is 3/4 accomplished. I just had a dream. My goal was to see them all graduate from high school, and they did. And then if they furthered their education, my dream was to see them go further than that. But I didn't expect every one of them to go to college or be a star pupil or not. I didn't look for that type of thing. I just wanted them to reach their potential. Not everybody's cut out to go to college. Not everybody's cut out to be this or that, like that. Sometimes you have to find your way. You also have dreams what you'd like to be, but sometimes it don't turn out quite like you figured it would. Well, let me think about this. I don't remember that. Do you remember? Did we discuss this one at all?
Yes, we did.
We? Okay. No, I mean when we rehearsed this.
He is very organized. And sometimes impatient. And I hope over the years that I have taught him to be more patient. I know when the kids were little, he'd say, why do they fight like that? Why can't they get along?
So I didn't know what it was to get along with nobody.
I'd say, that's just the way they are. They'll be okay.
That's just the way they are. But where did he get that? From you or from me?
I guess a little from me and a little from you.
Okay. She was a good cook, and she always looked nice. Even after we were married, she wasn't a sloppy dresser or just throw something on and go like that. She was always particular and washed her hair a lot. Took care that she was always dressed nice when we went away. I was never embarrassed to be with her because of the way she appeared.
I appreciate the fact that he'll come to me and say, how does this look? And if I say, I don't
You're not
think-
wearing that, are you?
Or I'll say, I don't think that goes together. he'll change. But I think he was left at home, I think, to do a lot himself. And I think over the years, he's really improved, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Faith,
Trust.
patience. I think when we got married, we had so many family members, extended family and cousins, and sometimes if we went, I think we wanted to go visit someone, which we did more than people do today.
Yes.
And he didn't think that was necessary to go because, well, they didn't do that as much in his family. They didn't really take the time to do that. But to me, that was always important, and it is now.
Because we didn't have that many people to start with. She had like 13 mother and 12 for father. That right away, that was a lot of aunts and uncles. I didn't have that many. My mother or my father's side had not dozens, all totals that you could have went to visit. We did visit. It was tradition, Sunday evening, out in Myota, there was a metal glider there that Grandma used to sit in. Like that, and we'd go there, and the kids would run around the yard, and people would sit there and talk about what they're going to do next week, starting Monday morning. And she always peeled apples. She peeled apples and peeled apples. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think of course, we're together most of the time, but if he goes somewhere and when he comes back, we'll talk about where were you and what did you do and did you talk to anybody, and just small talk. But I think we always try to go to bed and not be mad at each other.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think we usually always have breakfast together. I used to get up early and be the first one up. Now he's the first one up, and he'll make coffee, and then I make breakfast, and we kind of plan our day. But it takes time to do that. It's just because you got to remember you both came from different homes, and so you have to just put them together and decide what you're going to do, because this is your house now.
Talk. When you get to the point that you can't talk, I'm not talking about that. Always talk. What the situation is, good or bad, talk it out. I think that's a big problem with our society today. Too easy for a young couple to say, we quit, we're out of here. To get in a marriage, it's too easy to get out of a marriage. It should be more, there ought to be a law in the state that you have to go to counseling or whatever, and at least talk it out. When we all lose the ability to talk about something, it's a problem the whole way up to our government. They don't talk.
But then sometimes people want to stay in a marriage because of the children. If there's children involved, then that's not good for the children. So,
Right.
but I agree with him. You've got to talk. I mean, we had children right away, so then the children come into the family, and then that's still another big problem. Not a problem, but just a tradition. It's something to deal with, right? I think it helps if the children, particularly when they're young, be taken to church. And then as they get older, then they can make up their own mind where they want to go, what they want to do. But it's very important. I think that's some of the problems with the world today. The family has just gone astray. I know it's hard because there's different work schedules, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know what that's like because we had to deal with work schedules for almost 40 years. And of course, I had to learn to work with the shift worker, and I was always thankful that he had work and I could run things at home. I tried to help the best I could.
Well, like she said, there was only one income. I was the only one working. She did have a job for a while at church, so she had a little bit of income then. But basically, then when she stopped working, we had one income and had to stretch it out. We would start out on payday. We had a little notebook. We put all our so much for this, so much for that. And sometimes when we had each 10 categories and the amount of money for each one, we got down to the bottom. The whole paycheck was accounted for before I even had it in hand. We did that for quite a while.
So then we didn't go out. That was one thing you just didn't do. Maybe we'd go for ice cream, but we didn't go out. And I know when we started married or moved in our apartment, we were waiting for a sofa. Oh my gosh, we were so excited to get this sofa and chair. It was ugly black, but we thought it was so great. I think it was like $199 for the sofa and the chair.
And two tables.
And 2 tables. Yeah, so today I think some young couples think they move into a house and they should go just travel and have new furniture, and their expectations are, I want everything and I want it now. And it just can't be like that. You gotta work hard, which you two do, and eventually all of the others will come. Work hard, and I said earlier about don't expect so much right away when you first get married. I mean, it takes time and money to do all these things, and then eventually, I mean, I guess we were both brought up to you work hard and then you can play hard.
Work hard, and when you get paid good, hopefully, like that, and then you'll appreciate it. If you have a gravy job and don't have to work hard and still get a good salary, that's you won't appreciate what you just bought, what you're surviving on. You'll appreciate it more if you really earn it. If it's a struggle to get to work, and some days you don't feel like going, but you do go anyway, and then at the end of the week, month, however you get paid, you'll appreciate it more.
For me, obviously, good health. And I'm happy to hear that they're working on cancer or any other medical things to make keep people living longer, and my family. I'm proud of all my family.
A good report from a doctor. When I have a routine exam that everything looks fine, no problems, or even a dentist, a similar type thing like that. That makes me happy. I can walk out of the dentist office with no cavities or nothing. It might seem something minor to some people, but it's a double pain, the pain in the mouth and the pain in your wallet. You know what I mean? So if you can avoid that, either one of those, why, it's a good day.
Well, when we can both go for a walk, or I think also go on small trips. Mm-hmm. We really enjoy going to down to Kentucky.
The Ark.
To the Ark, and
Mm-hmm.
just being with other people and just being able to travel. And of course going to the beach, where I had a lot of help going to the beach. That was so much
seeing
fun.
so many of the family all at one place, as opposed to you two here now, somebody else tomorrow, somebody else all together. There they were all together, and I think everybody got along with everybody. There was no issues that I detected. Everybody's compatible, you know. Thank you. Thank you for interviewing us. I'm anxious to see the final results in print. However, what's the next step with what you just did? One long video.
I guess in the end, it's just, I know we keep saying it over and over, but life right now is fast paced, but you young people seem to be able to keep up, and I know when we say this so often, it's because we're older and we just can't go as fast. In our minds, we would like to go and keep up with you, but you get to a point where you realize you just can't go that fast. But God is good and He'll help us all to keep up. Oh.
Meet me halfway, Mama.
My first question is I'm sorry.
Yeah, he does that.
That's how I think. I think with my hand.
No, you don't. I tell you not to do that.
Okay. Still have to throw that in there. I'm thinking.
Leave your glasses
I'm thinking. I can't scratch my eye with my glasses on.
All right, last question is, do you have a favorite grandchild in-law?
Grandchild-in-law. That is a loaded question. I refuse to answer it on the grounds that I might be incriminated.
I'm just
on.
kidding.
Yeah.
Am I in the right position?
All
That's my Hyundai.